Elensi la lumenamente alvo. A star shines on the hour of our meeting. Hello, friends. I'm Narelon. Welcome to the stream. Everything's working. Good, good. We are going to be painting today. That's the plan. Got my stuff all set up. I might need to fiddle with things a little bit, like camera and so on, but basically, we're set up for this, aren't we? Quite nice. Let me just shift that around so you can. There you go. I've only got 3 colours out at the minute, but that's all. Anyway, thank you, Loomis, for the lurk. Hope you're doing okay today. Hope things are been alright at work. And I hope you're all okay at home. I hope you've had a good week. I hope Friday's treating you well. So, we are painting the High Elf Phoenix today. If you saw the first Warhammer, Wargaming, whatever you want to call it, model stream that I did, then, let me adjust. How's that? Is that a little bit better? Yay, nay, no? Stay left well alone? Maybe. Anyway, if you saw the first of the modeling type streams that I did, we assembled this Phoenix car, and so today we're going to paint it. Which feels quite appropriate that the first sort of modeling stream I did was assembling the Phoenix. Now the first painting stream is going to be painting it. I've got my other Phoenix for comparison. I painted this years ago, and hold on, I have a habit of picking things up and you can't see them. And I see they got to be up here or in here, innit? And looking at it now, it needs some work doing. To be honest, there needs to be some. There's a lot of room for improvement there, but this is what I did years and years ago. Car. You can see that. It's a bird, look. It's like a big bird. Fantastic. Very useful model on the tabletop. It's the ice version of the Phoenix, the Frostheart Phoenix for GW's branding. I said, looking at it, is there stuff I would do differently? Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. And some of it needs touching up just because, wear and tear. But I kind of wanted the Phoenix I'm going to paint to have a similar vibe, so I kind of got it for my own reference. I'm going to put it out of the way, but that's what it looks like underneath. But I wanted it for my own reference, so I can kind of get a feel for how the Phoenix is going to look. Now, the first stage is going to be quite boring, or relatively boring. I hope we can just keep chatting, and, it won't be so bad. But the first stage is just going to be me painting this, basically all the same colour, or very largely the same colour. I kind of need the camera almost up a little bit, so that it points at me, I know, which is kind of frustrating. So all you can see is my Avenged Sevenfold shirt. But when I'm going to pick this up a lot, aren't I? So maybe that allows you to see it a little bit more. I noticed that last stream that I tend to pull things back a little bit and then you can't see them. So we'll keep experimenting. Do you need to see my paints? I can get them out when you need them if you like. We'll see. Feedback as well is appreciated when it comes to stuff like that. But yeah, we're going to paint the Phoenix. It's going to be an all-over base coat of corn red is what I'm going to use. So that's going to take a little while. I say all over. The beak, the symbol of Azurian around its eye, and the feet are going to not be painted that colour. But everything else is going to be corn red, which is a base paint, so it covers pretty easily. It's a sort of a dull red. You'll see it once I get going. This is really annoying me again today. So, how have we all been this week? Hope your week's been alright. Hope it's not been too arduous for you. Now, of course, we talked Tuesday about the temperatures we've been having in the UK, and I know it's the same or indeed worse elsewhere in Europe, so I hope we're all doing alright and we've weathered the weather. Okay? Things have cooled down a lot more, haven't they? Which is better. I mean, when you think that it was 16 degrees... No. Wait, 24? 24 degrees cooler on Thursday than it had been on Tuesday. I think it was 16 degrees cooler on Wednesday, and then 24 cooler on Thursday. That's wild, isn't it? Such a difference is really wild. And very much not normal. Like, I like warm weather, it's that running thing in our Discord. I'm using this brush, by the way, which is a large brush. Really for painting sort of scenery and tanks and stuff. But I think with the scale we're doing, it might work for the Phoenix. We'll see. We'll see if it works for the Phoenix or not. If it doesn't, well, I'll use the other one. That's what that's there for. But if it does, fantastic. I've so far used this for painting tanks. Two specifically, the Space Marine Rhino and the... what's the best way of doing this? One side, then the other, I think. Space Marine Rhino, the classic Space Marine Rhino, in fact, and the Space Marine Vindicator, which are the classic Vindicator, based on the same chassis. Love both those models. So you can you really see? If I put my arm right, I think you'll be able to see it alright. I also think I'm going to have to get out a lot more paint at each time. You don't want to get out too much, it's just going to dry up, and that's just wasteful. And not good. At the same time, I am absolutely going to burn through it doing this. So it shouldn't matter too much. Now, there's an instant kind of issue that you're gonna notice, right? You're gonna say, Narelon, why are you not using an airbrush? Because that'd be a hell of a lot quicker. You know, you could just get an airbrush, slap some corn red in it with the appropriate thinning agents, and then just hose down the Phoenix. And then it'll all be painted super quickly. And the answer I simply have is, I don't have one. That's the only reason. I don't have one. Now you might also say, Narelon, why not use contrast paints? You know, they allow some pretty quick painting and some pretty good results. Why not use them instead of doing it in this laborious way? Spray the whole thing white, and then just use your contrast paints to bring out the reds, because there's those new red contrast paints as well. So there's almost certainly the shade that you're after. And the answer is simply, I've never used them. They were brought in when I was less involved in the hobby. And so I've never really kind of got into them. If I'd still been a White Dwarf subscriber when they came out, then probably I would have used them. But I also have this huge aversion to using light undercoats. Like, I've done it, and I don't like it. So this is going to have to be done with a smaller brush to get in some of these recesses. But I mean, that covers super well. I mean, look at that. That's already. I may, just as I did when it came to assembling it, I may have vastly overestimated how long some of these stages are going to take. But we'll see. We'll see, won't we? I certainly don't have enough colours to do everything, so it'll be me running to other room to get rest of my paints if need be. Well, that's okay if so. That don't matter. Now, of course, another thing to note is a lot of people will tell you that you must thin your paints always when you're doing it. You gotta thin your paints, because otherwise you're gonna get in a mess. You know, you're gonna put too much on. It's gonna obscure all your detail. And that's not untrue. That's decent advice for a lot of people. Depends how you paint. Given the way I do it, the techniques I use, I've never found the need to thin my paints. You notice I wash my brushes a lot, so they're quite damp, so that has a slightly thinning effect anyway. But also, the way I apply it is quite light, so we're not getting too much paint in one go. That being said, you still got to be careful. You know, I'm not putting too much on my brush at any one time. I'm not kind of really daubing it on. I did when I first started, of course. But I'm not doing that now. There might be a cut, though, even so, that we need more than one coat for this. And that's okay if we do. We want to get a good even base coat. That's why airbrushes and stuff can be really good for this kind of thing. But as aforementioned, I don't have one. Maybe I should, you know? But that's where we're up to. I just never have. Don't mean they're not any good, don't mean they're you know, no value judgments on it. They're very useful. They've developed a bit of a reputation recently because there's the whole thing that's, I guess it's always been there, but it weren't like it in my day. No, I suppose it's always been there, and there's been this big increase in the more competitive side of 40k, Warhammer 40,000. I mean, it must have always been there. I know even when I were doing, Warhammer doubles, so Warhammer Fantasy Battles, doing the doubles tournaments with Asmoth, there were those people who were way more competitive. And I know that doubles are less competitive than singles, and Warhammer was less competitive than 40k. So, I was doubly kind of insulated from it. But by the same token, it feels like there's been a much, much bigger emphasis over the past few years. And I couldn't tell you sort of a start date for it. Certainly that element's always been present, but it's got worse. So why is that relevant for airbrushes? Why am I bringing it up? It's because there's a certain kind of player for 40k. Maybe it exists for Age of Sigmar too, maybe they used to exist for Warhammer. But Warhammer was insulated because releases were relatively infrequent in Warhammer. Things didn't change that much. You know, Bretonians didn't get an army book from 2002 to when Warhammer came to an end in 2015. So, things didn't necessarily change super quick. You got an army book in addition and that was it. 15 factions. Not all of them got an army book every edition. So, this is taking way quick. This has been taking way less time than I thought it would. Anyway, so perhaps I was insulated in that regard. But I've still answered the question. And it's that this big rise in competitive 40k means that what some people are doing now is they're going for the army that's on meta at the minute. They're looking to see what the new releases are and rules updates and stuff. And then they're buying an army that's going to do well under those conditions. And to me, that is, I've talked about it before a little bit. And if you want to play competitively, I'm not going to tell you not to. It's not my bag, and I don't think it's really what. The games like this with models should be about. You want to win, of course you do. Nobody wants to lose, I don't think. But to an extent, I think it should be about the fun of it. You invest so much of yourself into your models. Your time, first and foremost. But your money, and these are colour schemes that you create very often. Maybe you invent them yourself, maybe they're when you saw in a magazine or whatever, but it don't matter. You're still doing all this yourself. You're investing yourself into these models. And so, to me, it shouldn't be about getting what's on meta and getting what's going to be most effective at this point in time. It should be about playing what you want to play. And yeah, you're going to have to make allowances for meta, and heck, this unit isn't actually very effective in this edition, so I'm going to have to take something else. I get it. But, I just feel like it shouldn't be about the meta chasing and, what do they call it, net lists? Is that what they call it? Loomis told me once. Where you find online what's the most effective thing and then you do that. And of course, if you're doing that with something like Warhammer or 40k, whichever it might be, you're going to have to buy a lot of models, if it's not an army you already have. And you're going to have to assemble them and paint them relatively quickly. After all, you don't know when the meta's going to change. So you've got to get them all together, quick as you can, and painted quick as you can. Now if you're doing it by hand like I'm doing, you could find yourself taking a long time. So you don't want to do that. What you want is to be able to airbrush them as quickly as possible. And that's why I mentioned airbrushing in this context. In fact, there was a phase the other month where Harlequins, Eldar Harlequins, or Eldari Harlequins, whatever the proper name is, for Warhammer 40,000 were very much on meta. And so people were buying, there's a particular Harlequins unit as well that really was. And so there were loads of armies of people who'd bought these Harlequins, bought their vehicles, and sort of just airbrushed them, very simply, in order to get that list to tournament as quickly as possible. And so there were a lot of jokes about people just airbrushing their armies, not because they want to paint them, not because they're struggling with painting, not because they needed to do it, but because they wanted to get stuff painted as quickly as possible using an airbrush in order to compete. There were a lot of armies like that. I saw the photos, you know. And I'm not judging your painting skill. Never. It just seems a shame to me to meta chase like that just because you want to win in competitive tabletop wargaming. You gotta have you gotta have money to do that as well, haven't you? Because you gotta be buying whole armies all the time. I couldn't afford it. Even when me and Asmoth were competing, we never did that. We did, you know, you're always gonna do bits. You are gonna look up online and see if particular things work well or not. But it's building your whole army around that is a little bit disappointing. Maybe you've got other thoughts, in which case tell me, you know. If you think, well, it's a tournament, so you gotta be competitive, or you're not just playing for fun anymore, tell me what you think, you know. Maybe I'm outdated or wrong in my views, you know. But that was how I used to look at it. Even in a tournament, I don't want to destroy you. I want to have fun while I'm doing it. I want to win, absolutely. But I still want to have fun. I don't want to cheese my way to victory. I mean, I've met some people who would have been willing to be beardy to defeat. I'll say that for no. Yeah, you meet some characters at these tournaments who are not very nice. And who are there to win, and win alone. They don't care. They don't care if they're having fun, they don't care if you're having fun. Victory is the only thing that matters. And I guess it just doesn't fit my way of looking at these things. Like, I want to win, but I want to win fairly, you know. I don't want to exploit anything, I don't want to cheese my way to victory. That's that ramble aside. I suppose, you know, I mean, this is Warhammer, but Warhammer died 7 years ago. So, this isn't for a tournament. This isn't for anything that could be competitive, because Warhammer doesn't exist anymore. It's just me and Asmoth playing each other. So true competition. Playing an old friend. But I do want to, do more 40k. I just don't really have an army that's viable at the minute. Not just in the meta sense, but that's ready and what have you. I'm working on one. I've got, slowly brought it together. Maybe next year it'll be ready. My current priority is getting the High Elves and Dark Elves painted up to face Asmoth, because he's my only regular opponent. Now, of course, I could, go to a Wargaming club or something. But that involves going out and mixing with people on my own. So as much as I like the idea of finding new opponents, in fact, maybe I'll be able to find somebody who still played Warhammer. But, nah, the thought of mixing with people puts me right off. But if you know me, you know that by now. Oh, there's a Warhammer shop in the nearest town to me. I could go there too. But again, that involves socializing, which I always try and avoid. Again, it's going to need more than one layer, but that's quite quick. Keep your airbrush, I'll just paint it with a giant brush by hand. I actually have nothing against them. I just don't have them. I think it's just because I've done things this way for like 27 years. It becomes more difficult to try a new technique. Excuse me. They choked me some. Just because once you get to a level you're content with at a certain technique, to then do something else is a bit of a risk, isn't it? What if I'm not as good at that? What if I make a mess on it? Like this one perhaps is outdated, or perhaps is less efficient or whatever, but I know I can do it to an acceptable level. It's a little bit reminds me of the early 19th century, when steam technology was starting to take off, and some people had come up with practical ways to apply it to the Navy. The Royal Navy, to make warships powered by steam engines, which is a huge breakthrough because it allows you to, you're not relying on the wind anymore. In fact, you can go faster with a steam engine than you can with wind, usually. You can go faster, you're not bound by wind, you're more resistant to currents. So it really has a lot of advantages. The Royal Navy, the British Royal Navy, was the most powerful navy in the world at the time, and the senior admirals were opposed to the introduction of steam. Why? Because they knew that their sailors were very good with sailing ships. In fact, British sailors at the time are considered to be some of the best. And so if you then moved from sailing ships to steamships, you lose that advantage. Your sailors who are so good at handling sailing ships might not be as good with steamships. And certainly you lose the advantage you've got over other navies who aren't as good. So you want to stick with your tried and tested techniques, rather than risk not being as good with the new stuff. But of course they had to do it, because steam is just a lot better than sailing for most purposes. There are advantages to sail, of course, but for most purposes steam's better. And so despite the risk, you have to embrace the new thing. Maybe there's a lesson in that for me too. See, the great advantage of sail over steam is that it requires no fuel, which then means you've got more space on board for supplies, and you're never having to stop to refuel. You just keep going. In fact, part of the thing that drove certain British colonial acquisitions in the 19th century was to get places that could be used as coaling stations, to pick up coal for steamships. Whereas, a sailing ship wouldn't have needed that, because you just go where the wind takes you. You don't need to stop and refuel. Which is interesting. Because you're still going to need to stop. You're going to need to pick up fresh supplies and water and whatever, but you're not bound by fuel. Which means you've got more option of where to stop as well, Pulling up on a river or something to take on water is very different to having to have a store of coal laid up somewhere for you to pick it up. Because not everywhere's going to have coal. Certainly not in the quantities that you need. It's not like water or food that's going to be relatively available. And so that's why the British acquired, islands in various places around, say, Africa, so that coal could be taken there and stored to be transferred to ships as needed. Big what are called colliers. So big coal carrying ships. Not perfect, but it'll certainly do. One wing already. It's coming on quite well. I do wonder now, looking at that other Phoenix, how much I've got to redo there, How much needs doing? How much can I leave? Looking at it, I keep thinking, could have probably done that better. Some of it will have been that at the time I was getting it ready for a tournament. Others could be how your attitudes change as much as anything. It may well have been at the time that I was like, good enough. And now I'm like, but is it good enough? I did get some models while I was on holiday. I went away last week. So I did pick up some models while I was there. I got a squad of Eldar Harlequins. I know what I was saying about Harlequins being on the meta earlier, but it's nothing to do with that. And I got a Dark Eldar Venom. Dark Eldar, Narelon. You've never talked about having Dark Eldar before, and that's true. But we were in it, so we went to Scarborough, which I was talking about the other day. And I picked up, we went in a place called Boyes. Boyes. It's like a chain. It's almost like a department store. They sell a bit of everything. It's quite a big one in Scarborough too, in a lovely old building. I'd say late 90s, early 20th century building. Could be wrong. And they've got a pretty decent range of GW models. And I spent a while looking at them, because I wanted to pick something up from Scarborough while I was there. They'd not got the particular thing I was looking for. My board's hooked on something here. That's better. They'd not got the particular thing I was hoping to see. But, there was some other stuff, and I was looking at it, and I thought, I think I'd quite like a squad of Dark Eldar Witches, or Drakari Witches as they are now. Yeah, I like the models. I think they'd be quite fun. Maybe I'll get one. And they were being sold at a discount. Well, all the models were being sold at a discount compared to GW's kind of standard prices. Dark Eldar, Best Eldar, love the Incubi. Now that is a topic of conversation. Also, Fishkus, is that it? Welcome on in. I hope you're having a good day today. Hope Friday's treating you well. See, I say I've not got any Dark Eldar. That's not strictly true. I've got the Dark Eldar that came in the original 3rd edition box. So I've got some old Dark Eldar Warriors. Reaver jet bikes. And then my dad at some point bought the old Archon. The one that's got like a face stuck over his helmet. So I've got some, and I've got the previous edition Lilith Hesperax model. So I just think it's a really nicely made model. So I thought it's something I kind of want to work on, because I've not really got a 40k army that can work in the current era, so it doesn't really matter that I'm working on it in bits and bobs. I thought I'd get some Dark Eldar Witches. My godparents said, well, looking at the price it's at, we were going to buy you something for Christmas. Why don't we buy him you? So I'm not going to turn that down. So Dark Eldar Witches I'm coming for Christmas. So I thought when we then went in Pickering, and they were like a Toy Master. I think it might have been a Toy Master. But they've got a really good range of 40k models. So I decided to pick up the Venom to go with the Witches. That's how that came about. Witches are nice too. Yeah, I just really like the models. I did read something the other day where they said that their outfits would perhaps looked futuristic in 2010 when they were released. But now they just look a bit like sportswear. Which I quite like. But yeah, the Incubi are really cool, aren't they? They're really nice models. I like that they're very like Dark Eldar, but at the same time they've still got a bit of that sort of aspect warrior vibe. I like that. That's a nice bit of design work, I think. They're just some very nice looking models. And I picked up a squad of Harlequins because I've wanted Harlequins for a while. I think they look really cool. And more than anything, I think there'll be a bit of fun painting challenge. They're quite different from anything else that I do. And of course I'm going to paint them in some pretty bright colours. Because that's what you got to do with the Harlequins, ain't you? Send in the clowns and all that. Plus, unless the rules change, you can use them with Dark Eldar, so I can kind of keep putting these pieces together. It'll be a lot of work to get the Dark Eldar army going, but I'm going to do that over time. I've got time. I'm not going to be playing 40k anytime soon, although I've got a plan for that. I really like the Corsairs too they did recently. Oh, they're so good, aren't they? They're on my to get at some point in the future list, which is very long. I've got a very long list of models that I would like. While we were in Boyes in Whitby, which didn't have as good a range of models as the one in Scarborough, I said a joke because they were selling them cheaper than standard GW prices. I jokingly said to my mum, I need you to look me in the eyes and say, you don't want to start an army of Sisters of Battle right now. And she's like, you don't want to start an army of Sisters of Battle right now? Like, thanks, ma. Because they were selling some models cheap, and I thought they're nice models. So maybe at some point, some Sisters of Battle will go on my to get at some point list. But the current one is Dark Eldar. Because I've always liked the Eldar. They were the first models I ever had from GW. It was, if you're interested, it was a Swooping Hawk Exarch that I got in August 1995. Painted it terribly. Oh, it is atrocious. But I love the model. I think it broke too. It broke quite badly at some point. Me being a kid. So I've always liked the Eldar. So, but there's something about the Dark, like you say, Dark Eldar, best Eldar, right? I didn't used to think that. But they've grown on me over the years. I mean, when they first came out, they looked a bit derpy, didn't they? There's a charm to them, don't get me wrong. But I think that the original, like 3rd edition Dark Eldar models do look a bit derpy. And when they updated them in 2010, they just knocked it out of the park, as they say. Like that version of Lilith Asparax as a model, the Succubus, whenever that came out, just fantastic models. I say the Incubi and Draja, I don't know how to pronounce it. They really do, but I only know them compared to the current. Yeah, that's it. Like at the time, I didn't think they looked derpy. I was like, oh damn, they're cool. But then obviously times change a little bit, and you're like, oh yeah, they look real derpy. But at the time, they were really cool. I remember actually going in a shop somewhere, town near me actually. There used to be like a department store, sort of thing. I mean, many years ago, and it had a really good toy department. And they used to sell GW models, and I remember going down there with my mum and dad on school holidays, and seeing these Dark Eldar models, and I'd never seen them before. And I was like, what are they? They're so cool. And thus began my sort of low-key, I think they're really nice, thing with like Dark Eldar Witches and Lilith Asparax. Only I'm in the hobby for 3 years. Oh, that's cool. So my ancient ramblings won't mean anything to you at times. What got you into Warhammer in the first place? Is there a particular like army? I mean, obviously you like Dark Eldar, but is it 40k for you, or did anything else get you into it? Because it's 40k for me. Back in my youth, in the 90s. But I used to do it. I ended up doing a lot of Warhammer fantasy battles, because that's what my mates liked. And you want to play games with your mates, and they mostly liked fantasy battles, so that's the one I ended up doing all the time. I played Total War Warhammer, of course, yeah. That's the thing, isn't it? Like, you're going to be a lot of people who played that and thinking they want to get involved with the models, absolutely. At the model side of it, of course, yeah, I'd never even thought about that. Shows my age. Although, I shouldn't, say it was unknown to me, because I got into 40k first, and then I played Warhammer Shadow of the Horned Rat, which was a PC game from 1994, I think it came out. It's not good by modern standards, but it's very fun. And I really liked it, and it pushed me to play Warhammer Fantasy Battles. And that's how I got into doing fantasy battles in the first place, even though 40k was my true love. Yeah, I also got Soulblight Gravelords for AOS because of Vampire Lords in Total War. Yeah, that makes total sense, yeah. That's how I got into High Elves in the first place. Apart from loving Tolkien and, really liking Lord of the Rings and all that stuff that made me like elves in general. You were playing Shadow of the Horned Rat that made High Elves the Warhammer Fantasy Battles army I went for. See, Soulblight Gravelords look really cool. I've not actually played AOS. I were one of those, like, crusty neckbeards who, when Age of Sigmar came out, weren't very happy. Now, I didn't put my army in the oven or anything silly like that, but I was one of them who were like, well, they got rid of Warhammer, I'm so unhappy. But I think I can definitely see a time where I would play Age of Sigmar. I think the models they've brought out for Age of Sigmar are just stunning. Like, there's so many just lovely models for Age of Sigmar. Like, the Soul Black Gravelords are very cool. I was thinking actually earlier, if I did play Age of Sigmar, what would I go for? I don't know, maybe Ideneth Deepkin. Just the idea of elves riding like sharks is so cool. There, I would have been mad too, probably. I was mad. In one of those, any of my friends who will listen are going to get a rant about Warhammer. They've killed it. They've killed me game. It's like I love the lore for Age of Sigmar as well. But I was pretty salty, I'll admit. Like, I can look back on it now and laugh, but at the time I was so salty. I've been playing this 20 years, look what they've done. It's the meme, isn't it? Look how they massacred my boy. It was that. But I mean, I hear nothing but good things about Age of Sigmar, so I'll have to give it a try at some point. Maybe adding a Deepkin. Maybe Daughters of Cain. Because I've got some Dark Elves anyway. I'm working on some Dark Elves at the minute, actually. Obviously, this is the Phoenix. But I'm working on some Dark Elves for my Warhammer Fantasy Battles army, because I had some way back. And I never really got more of them, because most of the range was metal. And I hate working with metal models. So I didn't really go anywhere. But then I decided to kind of do them up, the ones I'd already got, and just add few little bits to it. So I can keep playing my friend Asmoth at Warhammer, because we still do that. Because he never liked 40k, he was just into Warhammer, so he's not really done much with it since, like nothing new, since Warhammer were cancelled. Sadly I have to go now, but it was a nice chat. Yeah, nice talking to you too. I hope to see you again sometime. I do this every Friday. Have a nice evening. Oh, thanks, you too. Have a nice weekend as well. Nice to talk to you. Nice to meet you. So I've definitely got that going on. So maybe Daughters of Cain, if I did Age of Sigmar. Cause I've already got things of that vibe. I always like Marathi as well. Maybe it's a trend that I'm not. That's not come as an alert for some reason, but Fishikus Megavan then, welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for the follow. Yeah, that's right. I've not had to say my spiel in a little bit. That should have been an alert and I didn't see it or didn't hear it. I'm sorry about that. I think my alerts aren't working. Still, we persevere. That would also explain why when somebody hosted me the other week, I completely just didn't react. And then I'll probably never see him again. Oops. Now we're just not reacting because I didn't know. It were only after it came off at stream and it said, you've been hosted by so-and-so for all these viewers. And I was like, oh damn, I didn't see that at all. What's the other faction? Oh, Hedonites of Slaanesh. I quite like them. They've got some lovely models. And what they've done with the, what do they call them? Seekers? The mounts, the Slaaneshi mounts. They look incredible the way they've done them all. Like, the new poses are so much more dynamic. And the way they've got like bits of jewellery and bits of clothing on. It just looks Slaaneshi. Like, I entirely imagine that followers of Slaanesh put, like fishnet tights on a horse equivalent. Like, I absolutely I absolutely think that. And that's definitely what they do. Absolutely. So, and the posing is so nice. Like, I like the Seekers of Slaanesh, the Demonettes riding them, but the models are relatively static, and I've never been that big a fan of that generation of Demonette anyway. There's nothing wrong with it. I just never super on board. And so, still like the Seekers, but they don't blow me away. I'm not gonna say it. I'm not going to talk about the Demonettes of Slaanesh, having just said that. We're just going to move on. So, is it Bliss Barb Archers? No, that's not right. If you know Age of Sigmar, you'll know what I'm on about. The Head Knights of Slaanesh that are riding the sort of steeds of Slaanesh thing, the Slaaneshi steed things. I feel like they're called Seekers, but I think Seekers are actually demonettes mounted on them. So that's just wrong. Whatever they're called, there's like one that's like a close combat version and one that's an archer version, and they are just lovely models. Like the posing's so nice. The riders really look like they're kind of just decadent, and that they're almost like they're as interested in kind of looking to what they think is cool more than they are, getting involved in battle. And it's that very much that kind of over the top. This doesn't necessarily look cool, but they think it does because they think looking good is excess, And that just works spot on for Slaanesh. Because they're just all about that excess, aren't they? It just works. Come back to Dark Eldar a moment. One of the things that's interesting that never occurred to me till I read someone talking about it earlier is that it doesn't actually make sense to call them Dark Eldar because no one in universe does. We've got the new term Drukhari that they've been using for a couple of years. But no one in universe calls them Dark Eldar. They certainly don't call themselves that. Because they continue the traditions, if you want to call them that, of the Eldar from before the fall, they consider themselves to be the true Eldar. Everybody else has changed how they live on account of the way they live having torn a hole in reality and killed potentially trillions. However many Eldar there were at that time. So, it makes sense that you would change your ways in that scenario. But because the Dark Eldar have very much not changed their ways, well, they have got worse. So I guess that is a change. They, see themselves as the true Eldar. They just call themselves Eldar. Humans don't know the difference between them and the other kinds of Eldar, so they don't call them Dark Eldar. So, who are we doing that for? Also, they're like the palest Eldar around. I know it's not referring to darkness in that regard, and in fact is morally, I guess, the Dark Eldar. It's just reference to Dark Elves, isn't it? It's like a morality thing. I have seen a lot of people. I mean, there is a lot of fan art about the Dark Eldar. Like a lot of fan art about the Dark Eldar. If you know what I'm saying. Like a lot. And some of it, or very often, they kind of depict the Dark Eldar as having sort of grey skin. And I wonder where that's from, because in all the official artwork, they're just very pale. Like really pale, which makes sense. They come from the Dark City, after all. They're going to spend a lot of time in lightless darkness. But I wonder if it's just because of... Go on, you tell me. Drow? Is that the term? Is it Drow? The Drow from D&D, I believe, have grey skin. Is that why the Dark Eldar are being... because they're similar from what I understand. I don't know. I don't really play D&D. Not like the proper stuff. I played Dungeon World, or have played Dungeon World quite a bit, which I love. And that's based on D&D. But I've not played the sort of licensed modules or anything. So I'm not quite into the D&D lore itself. And that's no judgment. I'm not doing that, saying that because I think it's bad or anything. I just haven't. No judgment, just haven't. What's going on here? No judgment, just haven't. And so, I can't really talk about the Drow a lot, but I understand that they're grey skinned, right? And so I've got a thing that people painting the Dark Eldar as having grey skin must come from that association. Because we see a lot of that sort of fandom cross-pollination. Like, think about how when the rings, Amazon's The Rings of Power did a first teaser, and people were really mad that the female dwarf, is it Disa, didn't have a beard. But there's one reference in Tolkien to female dwarves having beards, arguably, and it's one of them where you can interpret it that way. I mean, obviously there's the bit in the film where Aragorn mimes it's the beards, but there's nothing really conclusive. I think it's open to interpretation in that one reference in the appendix to Lord of the Rings as to whether that means female dwarves have beards or not. Of course, people like to point to some abandoned sources of Tolkien's, but we can't really use the stuff he didn't, that he put to one side and never finished, as proof of what Tolkien really meant, because he put them to one side and never finished them, We can't say whether he intended that particular thing would be canon or not, because he abandoned it. Is that idea the same in his head or not? How can we tell? We can't really. No, can we? But there are lots of other settings where female dwarves do have beards. And so people kind of go in to say Lord of the Rings, expecting that female dwarves have beards because they do in other fantasy settings, whether it be Discworld or maybe D&D, I'm not sure. And so if they don't, they get kind of upset because, well, female dwarves have beards, don't they? Well, there's been some people, because Games Workshop has brought back, sort of, the Squats, who were an old Warhammer 40,000 faction. And they were originally space dwarves. They were like biker dwarves in space. The models didn't look good. And they didn't really know they didn't sell necessarily that well, and they didn't really know what to do with them. And so they dropped them from the range a very long time ago. But now they're bringing them back, completely revamped. And the models look, for my money, amazing. They're really, really good models. I don't know what they're going to be like to assemble or paint, because they are a bit busy in terms of design, which is not something that I particularly like. But they're kind of like prospectors or whatever, so it makes sense. They've got a lot of kit on belts and things, or at least some of the models are like that. Maybe get the option to assemble them with less tat on them, which I probably will, because I don't like a busy model. But there were some female squats there, or Leagues of Votan as they're called now. I don't know what you call a member of the Leagues of Votan, but anyway, some people were really mad because they haven't got beards and they're dwarves, right? Now, of course, in 40k they were never like fantasy dwarves. They're humans who lived on high gravity worlds and developed, therefore shorter and stronger because high gravity worlds. So they're a kind of human, so the idea that, well, shouldn't they have beards because they're dwarves, doesn't really apply, but it didn't stop people sort of getting a bit mad about it. Although I do think a lot of them were just looking for an excuse to be mad. Well, there I go stirring things up here. But that's what I reckon. I reckon some people were looking for an excuse to be mad. And the beards thing provided it. But then maybe you got different thoughts. Maybe you really like the old squat models, you don't like the new ones. I realised why the alert didn't come up like a pillock. I can probably fix that actually if I just got a load of paint out. I didn't move the setting across. Hold on. I mean, that doesn't explain why the alert didn't work on our Minecraft stream, which does have that alert thing set up. What a pillock I've been. Can I do that right now while I'm live? allow us to do that? Did that work? Maybe. I don't even know if that worked or not. We'll see. I'll just shrink that down a little bit. That'll probably do. That'll do for now. I also reckon I need to add the other thing that I've forgotten. I'll do that later. But I definitely have forgotten it. Let's just leave that there for now. And then we'll see if that works. Let me tinker. So that should now come up. If there's an alert. We'll see. It could be I've ruined everything. Alright, back to this. That's something to do off stream. But it should just work for now. Back to this is my problem. What were I saying? Dwarves! Yeah, so, like, if you're, you know, humans, you're not necessarily all going to be bearded, are you? Because squats aren't fancy dwarves. But there we go, I mean, I like the models. There's not, or there can't be, statistically, that many people who were invested in squats the first time round. Like, I know there's a lot of people who are saying, you know, I really like the old models and this is a betrayal or whatever. But there can't be that many squat fans, because there weren't that many originally. And it's been so long that, like, most people aren't going to remember. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people playing the game today who weren't even born when squats were cancelled. Like, when was the last publication that's, like, official publication that squats were in? The early 90s? Like, I remember it, but that's 'cause I'm old. They've definitively not been in an edition since Third, which came out in 1998. But there we are. But maybe biker dwarves are a cool thing. Remind me at some point, anyone who knows me personally, that I need to just finish tinkering with the setup for this, like alerts and stuff. I've clearly not set that up right, and that should work now. But I need to make sure everything's working properly. At some point in the future. So what other? I was talking about models that I got, didn't I? So the other thing is, my mum and dad owed me a bit of money, and so I was looking at this particular model. I thought it was great. In fact, it was an Imperial Knight, the Knight Preceptor. Because I've got the Knight Errant from many years ago, from like 8 years ago when it first came out. And I've only just assembled it actually, so I kept putting it off. Yeah, it's like I kept saying to myself, oh, I want to do it justice, I want to do a really good job. And so everything else took precedent because I was putting it off until the time was right. Which meant it just never got done. It's like scenery, I do that with scenery a lot as well. I'm like, oh, I'll paint my scenery when I've got to a good point with this army or that army or the other, and then never actually get around to doing it. So I finally assembled it. Not painted it yet though. So I went to the Knight Preceptor, so then I got a pair of knights, that'd be quite cool. And so my mum and dad said, look, we owe you some money. And also, you know, we haven't got you anything for Christmas. Again with the Christmas. So between the money that we owe you and, you know, your Christmas money, why don't we buy it here? And because it would discounted, that was feasible. So that's what I've got coming at Christmas. Knight Preceptor. And obviously from my godparents, that unit of witches that we were able to get discounted. So I've been very fortunate there. And then when we were in that Toymaster, or wherever it was, in Pickering, I was trying to weigh up whether to get the Dark Eldar Venom or the Harlequins. And my dad said, "Oh, I'll chuck some money into that." You know, it's like a holiday treat because we were on holiday together. The first time I've been on holiday in 3 years as well. Apart from a couple of times where I've been away for like a night or two. The first like proper holiday, so let me buy you that as a holiday treat, one of them. So I did. I got them both. So that's nice. And then obviously I've got the Dark Eldar Witches coming from my godparents at Christmas. And I've got the Night Preceptor coming from my mum and dad, coupled with the money that they owed me. And then, if I pass my exam, you know I've got that big exam coming up in 2 months' time. If I pass that, mum and dad have said they'll buy me the Horus Heresy Age of Darkness box set, because I managed to get it discounted. And that'd be pretty sweet. But I've got to pass the exam for that. They're like, we wanted to get you something for passing the exam, so why don't we get that, and then you can put it away, store it, or we'll put it away and store it, and then if or when you pass your exam, we'll give it you. And I was like, that's too much money. You can't do that. And they're like, no, it's fine. We want to reward you for your exam, so that'll be that. And what a box set it is. The big maroon thing now. And it's almost certainly going to need a second coat. In places, at least. Some of it covered incredibly well, and some of it needs more coverage. I keep looking at my other Phoenix now, though, and looking at what I should have done differently, or could do differently. Certainly needs some work, I think. It's a shame. Some of it's spot on. And there's bits I'm like, that could be neater, and that could just be better, But that's got to go way down the priority pile, because you could spend forever repainting and re-going over your models, couldn't you? So we've got to avoid doing that. So I've been very fortunate when it's come to model purchases recently, because of how things have aligned and the fact that I were able to get them cheap. Oh, I've just put paint on my hand. Let's do it like that. Straight off my hand onto the model, how's that sound? Some people like paint on their hand, don't they? Like they deliberately use their hand as a palette or something. I am not one of them. Nothing against it if that's what you want to do, but I can't bring myself to paint on my hand. That would really trip me up. Yeah, I wouldn't like that. I wouldn't like that at all. Don't know what else I've got. If I've got anything else to tell you about that. Do you mean models or when I'm on holiday or anything? I'll tell you about when I was cashing in my prizes at the arcade in Scarborough. Did I tell you that story? Where, I was waiting to get my prize. I chose this prize off the menu. Menu seems the wrong word. And they said, oh, we ain't got one of them, but we've got this other one. So I was like, fine, I'll have that. And the lady who was getting it for me, who'd got purple hair and quite a few tattoos, disappeared round the back to get it out for me. And the other lady there who'd got a septum ring said, I like your shirt. I was like, oh, thank you. And I looked down and I'd got my Trivium shirt on. Just kind of forgotten what shirt I was wearing. And when you get your mask on, it cuts off the bottom half of your vision as well, doesn't it? So I couldn't just see. I was like, all right, thank you. I said, it's like a nice thing to say, but it's not what I expected. And the lady said, oh, I'm a metalhead as well. And I was like, oh, nice. So I threw her the horns, and she kind of glanced around and threw them back, sort of smiling a bit sheepishly, which is quite nice. And she said so much to the other lady when she got back, which I assume was about that. It's hard to hear because they're in like the arcade we were in Olympia, the arcade we were in Scarborough. They're behind like a perspex screen, which is locked up, and it's clear they'd stop people robbing prizes. Which kind of says a lot about the life of an arcade worker. Huh? And they got to stop people robbing like rubbers and foam dart guns or whatever. I mean, some of the stuff's more valuable than that. And if you lived in an area, I bet you'd accrue tokens over time to get those big prizes. Like I can imagine doing that. Like if I lived near Scarborough, I can imagine me and my friends going down to arcade semi-regularly and just accruing tokens like that. Probably like every time it was someone's birthday, you go out for a meal and go down to arcade and win some tokens. And then after a while, cash them in and get yourself a Switch or whatever. Whatever a top prize would be, I don't know. But anyway, when the other lady came back, as I say, the lady with the septum ring who said she were a metalhead said something to her. And then the purple-haired lady pointed at me arm and said, "What's your tattoo?" So I rolled my sleeve up and had a look at my tattoo and they said it was nice, which was very kind of them to say. But that was like a fun little interaction. No doubt if I had better with social skills I could have handled it better, but it was quite nice just to have people be nice to you. For no reason. And always nice to meet another metalhead in the wild, as it were. And that's always fun. Quite a few years ago now. 5? Less than 6. I think 5 years ago. I were on holiday. Again, we were in Whitby. I was walking down this street with my godmother. We were looking for a particular place. Can't remember exactly what now. A market or a cafe or something. There was a particular thing we were looking for, like a particular shop or something. And this bloke passed me in a tourist ass t-shirt. And I kind of looked at him and he looked at me. And I was wearing this shirt, which you can see is Avenged Sevenfold. And we kind of looked at each other's shirts for a minute, and I spoke to him and he spoke to me, and we carried on. And my godmother said, oh, do you know him? And I was like, nope. He's a metalhead. He's got a band shirt on. And she was like, oh, right. Yeah. The kinship of being a metalhead, you see. Done that bit wrong. It don't matter, it's only a first stage, isn't it? We are going to be doing over stuff and artwork and repainting, but yeah, that's okay. So I could see what's part of the beak and what isn't here. If I do this basically red, a lot of it, I can then kind of touch it up with the yellow when it comes time to do that. There's certainly time. In fact, me handling it like this will also necessitate further coats of it. I'll rub paint off as I'm doing it. Some of it rubs off really easily like that. Some less so. It were nice while I were away to have a break from the studying I've been doing for the past few months. That were very nice, I appreciated that. Back to it now, of course. I also got an art foil, a very nice art foil, and I need to finish that because it's a very fiddly one, the fiddliest one I've ever done. So I need to finish that art foil, and then I'll probably post that on the creativity channel in our Discord. Exclamation mark Discord in the chat if you're interested. And when that art foil's done, If it looks any good, I might put it in a frame and all. I've definitely not done it spotlessly. Like there's stuff I've made mistakes already working on that art file. But definitely like lines didn't quite work out, or whatever. I was a bit disappointed with myself as I started it on Tuesday night while we were away. Thinking, I should have done that better. I could or should have done that better. Got a bit annoyed with myself. As I do. But I keep working on it and hopefully it'll look nice overall. It's a really cool one. I picked it up from Toy Master in Whitby. Went upstairs with my dad. We were just looking at what they'd got. They always used to sell all kinds of interesting stuff upstairs in that Toy Master. But it's not got as much stuff as it used to. There's been a general decline in the whole area, I think, really. Which is a shame. COVID, Brexit, probably the war in Ukraine. All of that, it's all had an impact. 12 years of Tory government. Definitely had a negative impact, hasn't it? Hey, on Loomis's stream, we used to joke about not talking politics. But we're not on Loomis's stream right now. Although we absolutely do talk politics on Loomis's stream. It used to be a thing we said. You should have a drink every time we talk politics. Kampai. But yeah, me and my dad went upstairs in Toy Master in Whitby, and I saw these art files, and there was this particular one. I thought I've got to get that one. That's so nice. And so I did, and I've been doing it, and that's a project to do. Then I'll get back into the swing of painting my Dark Eldar. Painting my Dark Eldar, picking out. That's in the future. Painting me Dark Elves, assembling and painting Dark Elves. Which I kind of do as like study breaks. But I did also, and I posted a photo in Discord, I've bought a new controller. Because I had a controller for many years and it went a bit funny. So I had to get rid, unfortunately. And then other week, in Steam summer sale, they were selling Mortal Kombat 11 pretty cheaply. So I thought, yeah, I'm going to get that while it's on offer. I was looking at it. And I realised, to my horror, they didn't include Melina. I couldn't have that. So I bought, as part of the offer, I got the DLC that allows you to play as Melina, because she's my main when it comes to these games. I main Melina. Definitely. So I thought I've got to get Melina, which I did. And so I thought, I installed it before I went away while I was packing my case or whatever. And then I thought, I've got 5 minutes here, half an hour. I'll play some Mortal Kombat. But, gentle viewer, I immediately encountered the problem that I didn't have a controller and it is very difficult to play on keyboard. I mean, maybe you find it differently. Maybe perhaps just a bit better at those sort of games. So it weren't a big problem for you, but it were a big problem for me, so off I went online, best controllers for PC 2022. And it came up with various ones. I thought, that's nice. And most of them are after me price range, of course, but there's some that were, a decent price. Looked very nice and were apparently very good, certainly for the price point. So I thought I'd get that one. Then I discovered that there were a slightly not quite as good model. Not this kind of model. A slightly not as good version. Made by the same company, very similar. But instead of lighting up on that, your RGB lighting, which I do love. If you catch glimpses of my keyboard, you can see that I do. But it's Fallout themed. It's Nuka-Cola themed. It's got the colours of Nuka-Cola. It's got Nuka Girl on it, etc. And I thought, that's just so cool. I've got to get that. So I did. And also, it was 20 quid cheaper than the version of the controller that I should have got. So I thought that is fine. Like I've got Nuka Girl on there, and the Nuka Cola like branding from Fallout. It saves me 20 quid. What's not to like? So I can, when I'm not painting and I'm not studying, get in a bit of Mortal Kombat 11, which will no doubt have some interesting changes compared with a K to the previous Mortal Kombat games, because they always do. What they are yet, I don't know. We'll have to see. But yeah, I do main Melina in the Mortal Kombat games. Melina, I should say. She's always been not always. For a long time, she's been my favourite. I think it's that combination of beauty and hideousness. I think it makes her quite interesting. Yeah, like she's mostly a beautiful woman, but she's also got hideous fangs and everything. And that's just a little bit interesting. You know, the Aztec goddess is a bit like that. Wait, is it supposed to be like this? But like, where's the beak in that regard? You have to switch to a slightly narrower brush to do this. Slightly fiddlier work. Still a very broad one, but nonetheless, it's just a bit better suited to what I was doing. There's nothing to really show you with this, is there? It's quite repetitive. Quite simple. I'm going to look up some reference pictures to see how exactly the beak should be painted, and use that to build my own ideas. You know, just what's meant to be the beak and what's the face or whatever. I do that quite a bit when it comes to models. Look at that. And yeah, I know it to be done in a trice. If I'd got an airbrush, but here we are. It's only taken us an hour and 20 to base coat almost the whole model. But it still wants a little bit more of a coat in some places, so that'll need going over. It's also interesting because it took an hour and 20 to build the thing. There's a nice symmetry there, I think. So, let's give that a try a moment. And then a couple of steps I need to do. Well, sorry, there's something else I was going to say there. I tell you what, I've been watching The Boys. I stumbled over my words. I've been watching The Boys because I got my free Amazon Prime subscription trial. So I'd save money if I can. Which reminds me, I need to do a Prime subscription to somebody. Because you've got to get your money's worth, haven't you, while it's free. So whether I knock off one of my other subscriptions and just use Prime for a month, then resubscribe, or whether I subscribe to somebody else for a month, another matter. But yeah, so I deliberately went for the free trial when I ordered that controller, actually, so that I can watch The Boys. Now it's very gory, isn't it? Very sweary. There's a lot of sex. Better. Just a minute. A lot of adult kind of themes, or whatever you want to call it. But it is very funny, it's very clever, and I love how satirical it is. That there's so much that it's just straight criticising things in contemporary culture, or things that have happened. And The Boys just kind of points to it and does their own version with just worse people somehow. And I love it for that. That's really good by my book. Interesting story, whatever. So I'm really enjoying it. Only got a couple episodes left. Got to decide if I watch an episode after stream. Maybe I will. That paint was damper than I thought it was. Whoops. So yeah, I've been really enjoying that. I think the acting is really good. As you know, is it Jensen Ackles? Is that his name? I think you're in Supernatural. He's been really good so far, playing it so well. I don't know how low his voice is normally, but the way he puts it on like that works really well. And there's so many like great spoofs. Like when there's a bit where they're watching like a superhero film from the 80s about fighting in Afghanistan against the Soviets, and the superheroes talking about how America will always stand beside its brave Mujahideen brothers. I was like, oh, that's brilliant. If you don't know, there were films in the 80s. Like, is it one of the Rambo films or whatever? That talked about that were dedicated to the brave fighters of the Mujahideen, and like Reagan and people like that really praised him. But of course, it would be the Mujahideen that they would be fighting when they invaded Afghanistan in 2001. Was it 2001? 2000? Yeah, 2002 maybe. It went that long after 9/11, wasn't it? So there's a sort of funny irony of the people you praised being the people that you end up fighting, and the boys are really flagging that up. Which is quite nice. And there's loads of other stuff, including references to like that advert for Pepsi that Kylie Kendall, one of the Jenners, I think it was, did during the Black Lives Matter protests of the year, where she like ends trouble between the police and the protesters by handing out a Pepsi. And there's some other references that are just very. I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's some other references that are very funny, and I've been really enjoying it. It's going to have flown by too quickly, though. I reckon I'm going to have watched it in a week. Just watching an episode here and there. Which is a shame, but I'm enjoying it all the same. Like I was saying on stream the other day, I enjoy how, for all its gore and violence, they make violence and gore unpleasant. Like, it's not sort of like, oh yeah, this is happening and it's a good thing. It's unpleasant and unpalatable, and it's not cool or neat. And I like that. We sanitize violence because it's unpleasant to look at. And that leaves us with not knowing what it's really like. In that regard, in a way we could do with knowing how nasty these things are, then it might make us want to avoid them. So that episode of the original series of Star Trek, where there's these two planets at war with one another. But they wouldn't actually wage war, that'd be very messy and unpleasant. So they wage like a simulated war, like on a computer game, almost. It's almost like they're playing a strategy game against each other. And then if, however many people the game says die, are then expected to kind of surrender themselves to sort of like euthanasia booths. And then die in the process. And one of the things Kirk does is disable that system by the end. And the aliens are like, why have you done that? If we don't continue to play by the game, our enemies on that other planet will use real weapons against us. And Kirk's reaction is kind of good, because if you use real weapons, maybe you'll realise how horrible war is, which will mean you'll want to avoid it. And that's an interesting take. That, if you appreciate how bad it is, you don't want to go through with it. So yeah, I can see that, And so I think the boys does that well, in that by making the violence so unpleasant, by making it so like at times, we don't glorify it in the same way. We don't go, yeah, this is fine. So, I mean, obviously this is all now base coated. The feet and beak I haven't done, but the body, all the feathers and flames, are now base coated. So the question we've got to ask is, how am I going to paint it? I know the next step is. The steps after are what I don't know yet. So, as you can see on the other phoenix, if I can borrow him or her, I did kind of like alternating shades of blue. I don't know why you can see that. I did sort of alternating shades of blue. And that's basically what I'm going to do for this one, I think. Alternating bands of blue. But, obviously the wings also are bands of blue. Red. 2 different reds on this one, just as I did the 2 different blues on that one. But because this one's easy, the Frostheart Phoenix is easier in that the frost bits of it are just snowflakes all over, which you could paint a pale blue and dry brush white a little bit. Whereas this one's got flames. So if you're doing a red Phoenix, you're then going to end up painting red flames on it. And I know the flames will be chiefly orange with bits of yellow and black in them, as well as red. So that's what we're going to have to focus on and keep the feathers red. So I think what we'll probably look at is have some of the bands of colour be this sort of colour, or a similar shade, and then have a brighter red for some of the others. Now, of course, how exactly we're going to bring about that is another matter, because I don't know how well you can see it. But the feathers are quite flat. Look at that, it just fills the view, doesn't it? Like the feathers are very flat, look. Like some of them have got ridges, they've got ridges and stuff on them, but they're not very textured. The tail feathers are a little bit. But they're not that textured. And of course, normally when you're painting feathers, you've got the kind of the ridged spine of it and all the lines that come off. And so you can paint it all one colour and then give it a wash, a shade. It's going to flow into the recesses. That's one way of doing it. Or, depending on what colour you're using, of course. Or you can paint it a flat colour and then dry brush over it to give you that depth. Both ways work. But with it being flat, we've not really got that option. So, we're still going to be definitely shading it, painting and shading it. But I think we're going to have to layer it up a little bit. It's going to be a little bit more time consuming. It won't look as good. But the detail's not there for us to work with in the first place, so we can't really help that. It's a lovely looking model, and we're going to do the best we can with it. Because, that's what we want to do anyway. This is going to be a little bit more awkward. I've got a new shade brush, because my old wash brush, it kind of got a bit mank. So this is a brush designed to take on a lot of paint in one go. The bristles are a little bit splayed actually to say this is new, which is a shame. Like, it don't matter so much with a shade brush, but look at that. I don't know if you can see that. It's not getting the focus, is it? Yeah, you can see it. Excuse me, just about see how flayed those... Splayed! Those bristles are, but, they don't matter that much for a shade brush like this. And we're going to use dark blue. Now, you might think dark blue on red, that's a bit weird, isn't it? But that's actually just a really good colour to use. Now, of course, normally with paints, you never leave them open. It don't matter quite so much with washes, because they're so liquid, they don't dry up so easily. And because they're so liquid, they're difficult to kind of just put on a palette or whatever. But we'll still act quickly. But yeah, you think dark blue, why are you going to use dark blue on red? And to quote Todd Howard, it just works. Now, I've actually put way too much on this. I'm going to try and spread this out quite a bit. I think this brush is actually way better at carrying the wash than the old one was. So I've really daubed it on in a way that I shouldn't have done. Like, I want it in all the recesses, but I don't want it that thickly. Still, it don't matter. Remember, painting is, as they say, an additive process. If you make a mistake, you put more paint on to fix it, generally speaking. It's not like, say, in my art file that I was doing, where if you scratch off the wrong bit of the black material, then that's it, that's done. You've scratched off the wrong bit of the black material. With painting, if you make a mistake, you just apply some more paint to fix it. Now, I don't really understand colour theory or the colour wheel or anything like that, but I've read stuff by people who do, and they say that when you're painting something red, you want to use a blue as a shade, because of the way the colours complement each other or some such. And that's what I'm doing, even though I don't understand the theory behind it. Because I don't really need to, do I? I can trust the people who do. Oh yeah, once again I put way too much. You get used to it, don't matter. It's very easy when you're using washes and very tempting, in fact, to absolutely daub it on, but you don't always want to do that. In fact, when you're painting, you very rarely want to daub it on. Subtlety is the answer, generally speaking. So when you're using a shade like this, we used to call them washes, you want to brush your brush fairly often because you don't want it to get dry. You want the shade to remain very loose, very wet, so that you get that, so that it moves over it. And what we're doing, so let me explain actually. What is a shade? What is a wash? What are we doing here? Shading, in terms of painting, is when you apply a darker colour to the recesses to give the impression of shadow. Now, of course, on any model, there will be a certain amount of natural shadowing caused by the darker areas getting less light. But we're not really interested in that because we're actually trying to synthesize how the shadows would fall if this model were life-size. There's actually a lot of overlap, as an aside, between how you paint models and how you do makeup. Like, you wouldn't think so, but when you hear people talk about contouring and aspects of makeup artistry like that, it's basically how you paint models' faces. You're putting highlights on raised areas and shade in darker areas to create impressions of a natural form in light and shadow. So what we're doing with a shade here, we are shading here, we're applying a colour in order to put dark colours in the recesses. But we're using what GW calls a shade. It's a wash, technically speaking. And what that is a very liquid paint, really. And so this will cover very quickly, but not very densely. And this paint, being quite thin, will flow into the recesses of the model. So it naturally picks out those shaded areas for us. Shading using a wash or a shade, or whatever you want to call it, is for my money, one of the most effective techniques. It's really easy to do, and it's quick, it's efficient, and it can really make a difference. Certain models, certain types of colours and things, you basically put on a base coat and a shade, and you're good to go. Like metals, like you can improve them further with highlights or dry brushing. But you put a shade on a metal and you're basically good. You're basically fine. You're done. Obviously, that's not going to work for this Phoenix, but it's a thing for a lot of colours. You can of course make your own washes by just watering some paint down. Ideally, when you're doing that, you don't want to use water, although that's the most common thing, so you can do it very easily. But you see, paints are made up of a few different things, and so one of them is the medium, and that's what you actually want to dilute, really. So if you use water, it dilutes everything: the pigment, the thing that helps the paint stay on the model, and the medium. Like a specially formulated shade paint like this, a wash, if you like, that's been formulated, will have more medium, but the right amount of pigment. So you're not losing any of your brightness or boldness of your colour. You're still getting that good coverage. It's just got more, flows easily for that wash effect. Whereas if you just put water in yourself, of course, you're diluting the thing that makes it stick to the model and the pigment, as well as making the paint a bit thinner. So that's why I like to use a pre-formulated one. But as you can use water to dilute it yourself, or you could use a medium. But I think GW's is called Lahmian medium. Or the Citadel colour one is, I think, called Lahmian medium. Either way, whether you use a bought one or one of your own, or whether you dilute it with water or whatever, it's a very simple and easy technique, and really quite rewarding. It's very easy to kind of overdo it and absolutely daub tons on, which I've kind of done here. Because of how much texture there is on the model, it shouldn't matter too much, because we are going to build up over this afterwards. But ideally I should have used a little less, really. That don't matter. It's just a happy little accident, as someone once said. I'm noticing some bits I've missed here. But again, we can go back over them later, that's no real problem. This is the next step. And the one after that is deciding what we want the colours to be. Which parts we want to be this same sort of red, and which parts we want to be the brighter red. I need to have a good look and a think about that. I'll certainly not be doing that today. Because then we'll start layering up. So what we're probably going to be doing is something called layering, which is just applying. It's a kind of highlighting technique, where you take the model, let's say I've already shaded it, and then we'll be applying, basically colouring in slightly more raised areas. So not the deepest areas, we want them to stay with this shade. But then we'll apply paint to the areas that are a bit more raised up. Again, we're building up the colour while also implying light and shade. And then we'll probably do some highlighting by applying a lighter colour still over the top areas. Certain techniques are going to work well on certain kinds of models and some don't. There's this shade which I'm doing that works so well on all these textured feathers would work very badly on a tank, for example, with a lot of flat panels. I've tried, I've used it on tanks and it has its place, but you've got to be more careful with how you apply it. Like if you just do what I'm doing with this, put to a tank, it'd look quite bad because the wash, having nowhere to go, would just form little pools and then dry, making the paint really irregular, which you don't want. And a textured model, it doesn't do that to the same degree. Still does it. You can kind of see here how it's pooling somewhat, but it doesn't matter as much because there's so much texture that it's mostly pooling in recesses. It's got somewhere to go, as it were. When I was younger, when I discovered shades, I used them for absolutely everything. And I've used them for vehicles, and looking back on them now, I'm like, that definitely needs redoing because it's just pooled all over those flat panels. So the thing, as I say, painted the whole thing. There we go. Couldn't get my words out. Painted the whole thing corn red, which is a foundation. Well, they used to call it foundation paint. GW calls it a base paint, and that's got more. It's got less medium, or more pigment, or whatever it is, that makes it thicker than a lot of your other paints, and that provides very good coverage. Now, of course, you don't necessarily want to use that for your finer details because it is thicker. You use it mostly for base coats, hence the name, which is what we've used it for. I've got the layer version of that, which I think is called like Mephiston Red or something. I'll need to double check, I can't remember. Word Bearers Red, that's what it's called. And this is your normal paint version that I'm going to then use to kind of layer up the areas that are shaded. And that's going to be our darker red, you see. We're going to have essentially this normal colour for some of it. And then I've got another paint which I think is Evil Sun's Scarlet, is that it? Used to be called Blood Red. So we've got Evil Sun's Scarlet, and we'll layer up some of the other feathers to give those bands of colour, like I've got on the older Phoenix. And then we'll probably do some final highlighting with a lighter red still. So in the case of the areas that are going to be this colour, the Word Bearers Red, we'll use that Evil Sun's Scarlet, you see, being brighter, to layer up, whereas those areas that are going to be Evil Sun's Scarlet, which is the lightest red I've got, we'll either have to mix up a lighter red, which I don't like doing, partly because I'm lazy, and mixing paints is a bit more of an effort, but also it doesn't allow the same consistency unless you can very reliably repeat the same mixing every time, which I certainly cannot do. But if you can, you're sorted. But if you're me and you can't, then it don't work very well. So what we'll probably do instead is use an orange. I've got an orange, not a fruit, the colour, and we'll use that orange, you see, to add some very fine highlights to those bright red feathers. The complicating factor is the flames. I'm going to need to double check some references to real fires to get a feel for how the flames go. But basically you layer up in reverse almost. You have your brightest colours at the base of the flame and your darkest at the edges, with just hints of just little streaks of black in the end of the flames. If you ever look at a fire, you get those little streaks of black at the very top, which is little bits of smoke essentially, and materials burning up. So because of that though, it's going to have oranges and yellows in it. I say it's slightly complicating because we need to use on the flames the sort of colours we want to use on the feathers of the Phoenix. An alternative would have been not to paint it red, but I've kind of got to, and I feel like I've got to. And anyway, I like red, and it fits the colour of my high elves. So. By that token, my other Phoenix absolutely does not fit the colour of my high elves, but there we are. My high elves were red and white, or white and red. I wish I'd used a colour other than white, by the way. I don't like painting white, and GW's whites aren't the best. Like whites and yellows seem to be Citadel colours' Achilles heel. Still, we'll get there in the end. Another fun thing about using a wash to shade is that it's a relatively low brain effort. You're just kind of daubing it on. Obviously if you're doing something more complicated where you've got different paints in close proximity, different colours, different textures or whatever. And you have to apply your wash more carefully, more precisely. That's different. But for this, which is the whole model essentially, or very nearly the whole model, this is pretty easy. Pretty low brain, as I say. Something you can do while having an in-depth conversation or watching a telly program or a film or something without really missing a lot. What I've got to do now is just check to see if I've missed anywhere. Because I will have done, because I always do. But again, that's okay. Happy little accidents. It was not entirely dry when I picked it up. That's okay. That was basically alright. It was mostly just tacky rather than full on wet. So I've not really caused myself any great problems there. I've definitely missed some of the areas with the wash a little bit. But that's not too bad because they're raised areas anyway, which don't really need it. Again, you can apply it quite precisely. Excuse me. You can apply it quite precisely if you need to as well, so that's fine. You can always do it later. If you're applying very precisely, you can use a standard brush as well, like something like this. But it doesn't hold the wash as well, of course, but again, it doesn't really need to. You're just doing little details. I'm glad to let that dry a moment. I don't want to keep manhandling it. You know, thinking of that, and thinking of me talking earlier about my Fallout controller, I always liked that in Fallout 4, it might be in one of the previous Fallout games, I think it's just in Fallout 4, you can hear those old comics or radio plays or whatever it is, where about a female spy called the Manhandler. That just feels that like 50s, slightly over the top comic book stuff, doesn't it? The Manhandler. I quite like that. Manhandle things. I did see when we were in. Where were we? While we were away, anyway. I don't suppose it matters where. Whitby, I think. We went in a Works. And Works, if you're not from the UK, sells like books. I mean, chiefly sells books, but also a lot of stationery. And a lot of like unusual stationery. So not just pens, pencils, but like art supplies, masking tape, wooden boxes. They sell a lot of little wooden boxes, and I've used them over the years, that are plain unfinished wood with the intention that you paint them yourself. Which is really cool, actually. And I do think there's something very appealing about that. Like, I've heard of people buying those cheap IKEA clocks, and I used to have one. Or a different clock up now, but I used to have one. You buy like, like just like a cheap IKEA clock. They've got a few. It's like just a circle with just a white face, black letters. Numbers, black numbers and hands. And then you just take the cover off and just paint it however you want. Oh, that's quite neat. I like that. It's creative. That's quite fun. So I can imagine doing that kind of thing. Or buying those wooden boxes and painting them up. I never did. I think I've still got one of those wooden boxes upstairs. It's just plain. But I like the idea of doing it up and painting it up. Maybe I will one day. I don't know. But they also had in Works, because they sell all kinds of books. In fact, it's the Works that when I was much younger, and I dreamed of being a writer, convinced me that I wouldn't be. So we went in this Works, and I looked at this rack of books. Shelf after shelf, loads of different books, dozens of different, scores probably, of different books by dozens of different authors, and I'd never heard of one of them. Been sold for £3 a piece. They were a few years ago, but still, been sold for £3 a piece. Absolutely tons of books by authors I'd never heard of, and I realised how difficult it is to break through into the writing world. When you see how many people get a book published, but you've never heard of them, and a lot of people haven't read your book. That doesn't mean it's not worth doing, but it does show that it's not necessarily easy to break through as a writer. But as I say, they sell all kinds of stuff. They used to sell cheap video games as well at times. I picked up some cheap tat games from there in the past. I got a Western shooting game once for £1. Can't complain with that. One of the things they were selling was like an adult colouring book. Not like an adult colouring book, an adult colouring book. And it was about like comic art. And I don't know if they were real comic art. There was certainly like a couple of names I recognised, and I don't know if that was coincidence, like they were just coming up with names for superheroes, or if it was intentional. But it were really fun. And part of me, because I was looking at it and flicked through it, and I was like, this is cool, I like this. But part of me thinks I should have picked it up, should have bought it. Like, I don't really got any crayons or anything. But it was just a fun thing, and I liked it. All these old comic book styles, old-fashioned, like we're talking 40s style, 50s maybe style comic books. Looking at all that kind of stuff. Superheroes, spies, all that. And it was just really fun, and I really liked it. And it kind of got me thinking, yeah, I like that aesthetic. Maybe I should have picked it up to just have around and enjoy. I mean, I didn't, but maybe I should have done. But that's reminded me, with like Manhandler, it reminded me of those like comics you see in Fallout. I really like them. I like that art style. It's like I got that controller with like the Nuka-Cola stuff and the Nuka Girl on it. I think that's fun. When I had my big playthrough of Fallout 4, because I'm not going to go into the plot for spoilers, but obviously you know about your character and their connections. And I really like Fallout 4, by the way. If you don't, that's fine. But I really like it. And I like to imagine that my character, with their connections in the past, and everything, just a really big fan of Nuka-Cola. I don't mean like, what's her name from Fallout 3? Or the person you get from Nuka World in Fallout 4, which is a really fun DLC. But just like someone who liked it, who thought Nuka Girl was really cool. So I was quite pleased to get the Nuka Girl outfit from Nuka World. I just imagine my character waltzing around in that, thinking she's just having a great time. The refreshing taste of Nuka-Cola. I can't remember the Nuka-Cola song. I also got the Power Armor. That's sponsored by Vim. You know that one you can find in Far Harbour? Far Harbour, which is sponsored by Vim, and it's emblazoned with like the taste of adventure and other slogans. I loved that so much. I mean, this one's easier because it's got a closed mouth, so I've not got to paint the tongue. It's quite nice. I like the staring eyes I managed to give the other one. I don't know if you can see that. That's not insufficient. I need to do something more like this, maybe. Yeah, it's just like really staring. I so like to say "caca" whenever I'm moving this phoenix around. That's a fun thing to do, and don't let anyone stop you. Like "caca" when you're moving the phoenix. Asmat does it with me as well. Like "caca." We use that phoenix in tournaments. Very effective. Just really hard to kill. Like those phoenixes don't do a lot of damage, but they're hard to kill. If this don't work, I might leave this step for another time, because I might have to stir this paint up a bit more than I can do easily on stream. Yeah, I'm gonna have to, I think. I know I can just stick the brush in and do it, but looks like it's settled a bit. Let's try. If you are checking paints up like this, remember to always keep the lid on. Use your thumb and forefinger, whatever, to make sure you hold the lid in place. Because even though it should stay, you don't want to be checking paint around and the lid come off, do you? Or come open. Like, you just don't want that, 'cause it's going to make a right mess. Let's try that. Well, I think I'll probably do. So I've got to leave a lot of this still to dry. I can see it's still wet, which it will be from that wash. Is what I'll probably do is just do the base coat on the feet and the beak and probably leave it for tonight. I think that's what we'll probably end up doing. Wow, this is way brighter than I thought it were going to be. This is not the colour I thought it was. That's a very gaudy yellow to be painting the bird's feet. Did I not do this one, that colour? Was that a different yellow? That might be a different yellow. Well, okay, change of plans then. I'm going to apply a base coat to her foot. And then we're going to see how that settles down as it dries. Because this is very bright. I mean, I think with the right shading, I can make this work. But it just seems really gaudy. Which I didn't want. Hey, you never know. Maybe I'll be able to make it work, huh? Certainly this is the kind of colour we want to be using for some edge highlights on the flames and things. But I'm not sure if it's the colour we want to be using for bird feet. So yeah, I'm definitely going to just paint one foot tonight. And it could also be just that the paint's separated out a bit because I've not used it in a while. Oh, that's way too much. Which will make it look a bit, different to the shade I might expect. But it could also be I just don't remember what shade this is properly like. Like I said earlier, Citadel colour doesn't have great yellows or whites in terms of like colour and coverage and things. But yeah, it's not terrible. Sometimes that's all you need. After stream, it's going to be too late to study tonight, so do I watch some telly? Do I do a bit of painting in my own time? Not this is all going to be painted on stream. I've just stuck the picking thing in my hand. Do I play a video game? Do I ever go on Fallout? Not Fallout. Maybe Fallout 3. I was kind of putting that off until after I'd finished my exams. Because I feel like a game like Fallout needs a lot of time invested into it. What did I tell you the other day? I can't remember if I did, you have to tell me. That I've bought a boiler suit. Got it from a place called Sea Bay. Yes, really. In Scarborough. A proper ramel shop, Oh, I shouldn't have called that. One of those shops that proper sells ramel. But they were selling boiler suits quite cheap. Like, decent quality boiler suits cheap. So I bought one in electric blue now. You know that immediately thinking, Narelon, why in the heck would you want an electric blue boiler suit? I mean, like, why do you want a boiler suit full stop, for starters? Why an electric blue one? And of course the answer is Fallout cosplay. I could use that as the basis of a vault suit. Get that, stick all the yellow details on. Which my godmother's definitely going to help me with. Or have to help me with, I should say. Well, she's not compelled to do so. I'll just definitely need her help. And the other problem, of course, that I didn't think about at the time is I was trying to get one that were going to be big enough for me to wear. But the other problem is that boiler suits have a very slack fit, don't they? And the vault suits don't. So it could well be that I bought too big a boiler suit. But then the legs are ridiculously long. Like boiler suits come in one height, I think. It's like a giant, and the legs are giant. But of course, the other problem would be length of sleeve. Like I need it to be long enough for my long arms. So that's an issue. And you don't want it to be too tight in other places as well. So we have to take it in and faff about. But that's why I got that electric blue boiler suit. But I think what we'll do, because I need to let this dry, because it's still wet in places, and I need to see how that yellow dries, what kind of colour it dries. So I think we'll probably leave it for tonight. I know it's only been a 2-hour stream when I normally like to do 3 or 4, but you know, it's a quiet night. Sometimes I do shorter streams. This is what this kind of demands for us. But there we are. So we'll probably leave it for today. I've enjoyed that. I hope you have as well. You know, that's quite. Yeah, that'll do. We'll work on the next stages in future. Yeah, thank you again, Fishkus, for the follow. I appreciate it. In case you watched the VOD. So yeah, I hope everyone has a nice week, a lovely weekend. I should be back on Tuesday at nominally 2000 BST for Minecraft. It's Minecraft on a Tuesday, assembling / painting models on a Friday. They're both nominally at 2000 BST. I could theoretically be later or whatever on a Tuesday because I work, because I work quite late. You know, I might not finish till, or I usually finish at 6 on a Tuesday, I might finish later. So we always have that to worry about. On a Friday, it's just my own inability to handle time properly. That means I'm sometimes late. But, that being said, 2000. So yeah, if you want more modelling and painting, that'll be next Friday, should be, at about 2000 BST. But I'll be back on Tuesday at 2000 BST for more painting modelling. We're probably going to do more on this, probably do the next stages. I'm already liking the colour of this leg's drying a bit better than the one when I put it on, by the way. But again, we need to see. Might need to experiment a bit with that to get the right shade that we want. So, have a lovely weekend. I hope next week goes well for you. Hope you're alright with whatever you're doing. And yeah, I hope to see you all soon for my next stream, which will be on Tuesday or on Friday or whenever. Hope to see you all soon. Until then, take care and namarie.